We're back finally with the Alfa Romeo 156 GTA Sportwagon, and today I'm going to talk to you about everything that is wrong with this car. I bought this for just £3,300, the cheapest one in the country right now being 10 grand. So obviously there has to be something wrong with it. At least that's what I expected going into the purchase. So I'm going to do a full review of the car today. Everything that I've found out is wrong with it so far, which is kind of going to show you how big the bill's going to be. If you want to support the project of restoring this lovely 156, then please do hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, like the video as well. Go check out the merchandise as well. Think about doing some merchandise specifically for this car. If you think that's a good idea, do let me know in the comments down below, and let's get straight into it. I'm going to start with what's wrong with the outside, and then I'm going to go through the inside, then I'm going to go through what it's like to drive. So those are the three kind of things I'm going to go through. I'll do a proper driving review of the car in the near future. For now, let's start with the outside of this car, which is probably where most of the problems are. But I am saving the biggest problem for slightly later in this video. You might be able to guess it. You may actually be able to see one of the modifications I've made already, which is this lovely number plate. I have got, for the first time ever, a private plate. Obviously R444 GTA, it's a GTA, it makes sense, and it can either be like raw GTA if I'm wearing a hoodie, or like raw GTA if I'm wearing a suit. The reason why I bring it up as well is because there was a problem with the previous one. I'll show you a little clip on screen. It was completely perished. I thought about just replacing it, but then I knew I was gonna get a plate for this car, so I thought I'd just get the plate. Probably here is where the majority of the problem lies, around the front of the car. You can see here, one of the first things you'll note is the paint. There's loads of paint that is missing, like literally you can put your finger in it and feel a huge loss of where that paint should be. I'm sure it must have hit something at some point. There's also a crack in the bumper here. I think that has been pulled. I think it's actually been pulled from the backside, therefore it's kind of pulled the bumper off of its brackets as well. Hence, you come around here, you can see there's quite a big panel gap here, and actually later on I'm going to just go and check out what's underneath here, because I can actually pull the bumper back into place. Obviously it's not being held on somewhere or another, but once that's back up, I hopefully get a bit of a better looking front end. You can see the panel gap closes around there and then reopens again. Something very common on these cars is this faded Alfa Romeo badge. I've got a spare one to replace it with, so that will happen at some point. It's also missing its window washers on both sides. Now they are inside the car somewhere, and also it is missing its fog lights. So you go down here, it's got no fog light in there, and it's got no fog light in there. I'm keen to not have to replace panels if I don't have to, and it's not in that bad condition, so it just needs a bit of paint to get it back up to standard. Another thing wrong is this headlight here. You can see it is literally not held in place. It's fallen off of its bracket. I'll show you that in a second. This once would have had a bracket to hold it in place. That has clearly gone rogue, and there's a bolt here that needs to be drilled out at some point, because currently there's no real way of holding this in place. Unfortunately, all my searching so far, I think these cost about 500 quid per headlight to replace. So the fact that they're also faded and looking a bit perished is not making my wallet feel too happy. I can get them for a left-hand drive car, much cheaper, for like 120 quid total, but for a right-hand drive one, I can't seem to find them. So if you are out there and you know how to get cheaper headlights for this, let me know in the comments down below, or drop me a DM on Instagram. The engine bay is a little bit rusty in some places I wouldn't want it to be. It just needs a little bit of a touch up, to be honest. These are known for rusting, but actually it's not too bad in there. I've had a look around, it feels okay. The biggest problems, as I say, are kind of between here and here around this kind of front end. Then walking around the side of the car, we have got a little bit of rust here on this front wing. Not too bad, it's actually pretty good on one of these. I know this has been replaced at some point. The alloys are in desperate need of a refurbish. You can see there's all sorts of rust going on the alloys, and in here as well you can see that the paint has faded on the brake calipers, which is a bit of a shame, but we can get that sorted, no problem. One thing the eagle-eyed of you might have spotted too is that it's missing the arch liner on this side of the car. There's no arch liner, hence you're getting a build-up of horrible stuff in there, which I need to sort out very soon, because otherwise more rust is going to come. This is literally not on the car. I can glue that one back on and have done with it. It's been pulled off, I think, by a curb or something by the previous owner. Not helpful, a very quick one to fix though. And you know, all around it's missing its little jacking point covers. That is very typical on these, I've heard. I wanted to also mention that these Alfa Romeo badges have faded in most cases in the middle of the alloys, which is just, again, a pretty normal thing for a car that is over 20 years old now. And before I get onto the side of the car, it's got bubbling paintwork on the bonnet too. too. Some of the trim on the front end is having a great time, as well as a little bit of rust on these window wipers. I want them to look a lot better than they do today. And then on the trim as well. So on the trim, there's a whole bunch of moss growing into the trim, which I definitely need to get sorted because it makes the car look super old and super tired. And then when you get to the back of the car, it all gets a little bit nicer, to be honest. The biggest problem that I have back here is that the exhaust is basically hanging off the car. It's obviously significantly lower than you'd expect it to be. There's a bracket under there that I think is broken that needs to be sorted. And then one of the scariest things, and probably worth pointing it out now, is the rust around the sills. So there's rust clearly on this sill here. There's rust obviously on the wheel arch here. Some of that's going to need to be cut out, and underneath the car as well. I can't show you properly right now, I've not got it on a jack, but it is properly rusty under there. And this is probably a very good point in the video to talk about that rust. So the rust on the exterior actually isn't too bad for a car of its age, particularly being a 156. Like, these are known to rust horribly, and yes, that bit there isn't very nice. But the real problem is that those sills are so badly perished all the way through on the sills. Again, not actually that bad a job. You cut out the sills, put in some new ones, that'll get done. No issue there. If I come around here though, and I'll show you a quick video of the underside of this bit of the car, there's a bit there that I think needs a bit more than a patch up. Yes, it could be patched up and resolved, but I would much rather remove the entire rear subframe from under that bit of the car and replace it with something better. The problem with that though, is that yes, I can see that the rear subframe has some serious rust on it that needs to be resolved. What about the floor? I haven't seen the floor yet. I haven't lifted the carpets up to have a look at the floor and see how bad that could be. That rust could be a real killer. Luckily, as I've seen many comments being like, oh, JP, why did you buy that car? What a waste of time, what a waste of money. It's gonna be a real money pit. Number one, I make YouTube videos as part of my living. So hopefully this car can add to that. I don't expect to break even on it, come on. It's an old Alfa, and it's a labor of love kind of project, but it is still all for content. It's still all for a bit of fun. And two, sitting right over there behind the nice Audi Quattro that you might just be able to see poking out is my dad. Now, my dad has been a car mechanic for 30 odd years, and he's the guy that made my Mark 1 Mazda MX-5 supercharged beast possible, and is the main reason why I felt comfortable buying this car, knowing that I had someone who I could rely on. Now, we don't know the extent of the rust until we get under it properly and take a real good look at it. I've had a decent look. It doesn't look too good. Looks like we're gonna need to do some work. But then outside of that, the car just kind of looks old and tired. I'll show you a quick clip of when I got the car washed, and the car changed drastically from the first day that I saw it. And that carries on onto the interior. When I got the car, the interior actually had like old tissue paper and that kind of stuff in it. It was proper old and like proper tired. I have just given it a simple clean, and it's already nicer in here than it was before. Some of the key problems in here though, you've got these seat bolsters have perished, as you'd expect on these old cars. This has done 113,000 miles. I'm sure it's been gotten into and out of a few times. This seat bolster here is basically gone. That needs a whole new bit of foam in there. This bit here doesn't really work properly. It doesn't like hold itself in place anymore. And then outside of that, it's actually not that bad, to be honest. Like, I want to get the whole thing reupholstered. I'll talk about plans in the future. You've got this airbag thing. The dashboards are known to warp on these, and this one has clearly warped, so that airbag bit is sticking out. I've tried to glue it in with a bit of epoxy, but it's not stayed, so I'll get some more epoxy and keep that stuck in there so that it doesn't look quite as horrendous for the time that I'm currently driving it. Some other bits to note are the gear stick here has obviously perished, need to sort that one out, and the steering wheel as well is in desperate need of a retrim. Then it's all the old buttons and stuff like that. They just look like they need a bit of work. The pedals have lost their kind of sticky bits. They're actually from Momo, but they have lost their sticky stuff, which means that they're very easy to slide off of. I found a few times whilst driving. Another thing to note is this screen here is faded, so it's quite hard to see it when the car is on, but it does kind of work still. Some of the trim around the car is hanging off. You can see here, this bit here is just hanging. So a couple of bits like that need to get sorted. And then a final couple of bits to note that are also wrong with this car. One is that the aircon needs a regas, or probably just a little look over, because it's not quite as cold or as aggressive as you might like it to be. And this rear passenger window doesn't open. But outside of that, it's not much to report. As I said, the main problem here is rust. Everything else on the car that is kind of wrong, it's not the end of the world. They can get sorted super easily. The biggest problem really is that rust. So we need to get that sorted sooner rather than later. I've got some incredible plans for this car, and I'm desperate to show you them. Now that is genuinely everything. So let's go take the car for a drive, and I can show you the last couple of bits that are wrong with it from a driving perspective. So what's wrong with it to drive? I'll be dead honest with you, bro. Absolutely nothing. It's an absolute pleasure to drive. Probably the best thing about it, and the reason why I think it's worth this restoration, is simply how good it is to take out. Like, it's so strong. The engine is a real pleasure. Everything about it is just right. It feels so good. It needs a cam belt soon, I know that much. The only thing worthy of note is the squeaky brakes. So it's just had some new brakes in it, and they aren't the happiest at slow speeds. Like when I'm driving slowly, the brakes like to squeak. It's a little bit annoying. But if that's my only problem with this car, then I am blessed. And it just sounds so beautiful. Look, I don't want to do a driving review right now, because I'm going to do a driving review at some point soon. I just want to say, with everything that's wrong with this car, with its squeaky brakes, and one more thing to mention actually, the passenger door card gets caught on the door on pulling. It's currently covered in gaffer tape to stop that from happening, and to pretend to my wife that it doesn't happen. But yeah, outside of that, this thing is so nice to drive. I feel so blessed to have it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the problems that I am currently facing and that I need to resolve sooner. That rust is going to be a killer, but that's what we need to sort out soon. I've already bought a whole bunch of stuff to restore it, so I'll get that stuff done very soon. But the big restoration project I have planned for this car might take a little bit longer, so let's just see how it goes. If you like this kind of content, do hit like, subscribe as well. If you go to the merch store, buy some merch. It will help to fund this build. Thanks to Patreon for their support. You guys all for watching. I will see you in the next one.